I am the CEO and co-founder of a startup called LaLa. We are located about 10, 15 minutes away from Google, near Los Gatos. And I tried to do a presentation today that maybe could apply to many of you in the audience, because I know a lot of you are trying to be filmmakers or writers or creators in the movie space. And I work particularly with the studios down in LA, so I'm more of like the major marketing of major films. But maybe you'll think the technology is cool, and maybe in the future you'll want to apply it to your own marketing efforts for your films. And I'm going to start with Steve Jobs talking about the transition that's happening today in Hollywood from traditional marketing into the digital. And what I am mostly focused on is in mobile. I think that's where a lot of the consumers are consuming content and sharing what they're seeing. So I will start with this video.
It's really interesting. The opportunities in technology are huge for content owners, in my opinion. They always have been. And as an example, the way that we market movies is undergoing a radical shift. It used to be that you spent a fortune running advertising on TV to run your trailers. And now we can reach that same audience much more effectively on the web, through whether it's Facebook, or whether it's targeted communication with loyalty groups, whatever it might be. You know, when we went to the music companies, we said, "Who is your customer?" And they said, "Oh, it's Best Buy and Target and what was the record? Tower Records, that was it. And Tower Records, they thought their distribution channel was their customer. You know, in the same way that people making movies might think that your movie houses are their customer, but they're not. Their customer is the viewer, just as the music company's customer was the listener. The music companies had no connection with their listeners whatsoever. And so what changed in the music industry was not the back end of the business, the A&R, the seeking out and developing of artists and talent over, you know, which is just as important now as it ever was. What changed was the front end of the business. The distribution and marketing was able to be done in a much more effective way, bypassing the distribution channel and going direct to the end user. And that's what's going to happen in visual media as well. And the marketing is going to get a lot more interesting, more precise, cheaper, efficient, but the content is going to be just as valuable, if not more valuable, in the future. So what the studios need to do is to embrace this new front end of the business, to start knowing who their customers are, and to start building mechanisms to communicate with them and tell them when their new product is coming out, and also to let them watch it wherever.
Okay. So I think Steve Jobs does a brilliant job of explaining the situation that's happening with movie marketing. And this actually was one of the videos that my co-founder, he's the founder of LaLa, he saw this video and he traveled all the way from Istanbul to Silicon Valley to start LaLa. And I'll kind of explain like how we started from the beginning. So I'll go to my deck. So we are doing a socially designed platform for upcoming movies, particularly in mobile. I am born and raised in Los Angeles. I grew up in Westwood Village, if any of you have ever been to LA. And I went to school at Yale University, and I worked in New York City in advertising. Started at McCann Erickson and J. Walter Thompson, and I even did a stint of being an artist for a while, so I know what it's like to be a struggling artist. And moved to Silicon Valley in 2008, right during the crash. And I started to work in a startup. I was the second hire, and the founder was a woman. And seeing a woman, you know, build a startup from scratch really inspired me to continue being an entrepreneur and kind of build my own ideas. And when I met my co-founder, who's on the far left, he is the one who loves movies. He's a hardcore movie buff, and he was building scripts to actually bring trailers into his inbox because he felt like he was pecking and hunting around the internet trying to find all of his favorite trailers. And when we met, he pitched to me movie LaLa, and I was like, have you ever been to LA? Like, do you know anything about Hollywood? I used to intern at Fox Studios growing up, and I know a lot about how the business works, and it's not as transparent and as it is up in Silicon Valley. The business is completely different in Los Angeles. So the two of us teamed up, and we met through our French friend of ours on the far right, who's a little wild, but he is an entrepreneur as well. And my co-founder is a serial entrepreneur. This is his 5th startup. He's done 4 in the past. He started his first company when he was 17 years old. And I'm telling you this because I feel this is my first real company, and I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have a partner who has had the experience to really help guide me while we built this company together. And it all started with an idea of how do you build a mobile and social and personalized app. We kind of called it IMDb 2.0 for the next generation. And in the beginning, when we started, we did a ton of research. This is, all the incumbents in the space, including IMDb, Fandango, Flickster. Most of these companies were built about 10 years ago. All of them were built on desktop, and they don't do a lot with their data and analytics. They're not built on a social graph. They are not a mobile-first company, and they're not API-driven. So there's a lot of ways that we really wanted to improve the discovery and shareability of movies. And we also know that marketing is the largest spend when it comes to studios. It can cost up to $250 million per film for the large franchises. But if you total it in general, international and domestic, it's $17 billion they spend in movie marketing, which is a lot of money. And I'm sure some of you who are trying to get your movies up and going, you're trying to raise like $100,000. But a lot of times, even in the independents, you raise the money and then you run out by the time it gets to marketing, and the studios obviously have an abundant amount of dollars to spend to market their movies. And another thing that really bothered us when we first started Movie LaLa was, why is there no engagement at the end of trailers? Like, there was a black screen, or sometimes there would be like the YouTube squares, no offense to Google here. But we felt like, obviously, studios are spending so much money marketing these movies. How do they not build engagement? And I think it's because they haven't really done mobile 100% yet. And so they're still working in the old ways of marketing movies. And in mobile, you actually want to touch your screen. You want to tap it. You're like addicted to the phone these days. So we started with a technology that was a time-sensitive call to action. So based on the windowing of the film, if it's like in theaters, you would have smart buttons that change. So if you're from Europe, it would have like a WhatsApp share with your friend. If you're in the US, it'd be a Facebook button to share. And then you'd sign up to get notified, so we can send an email or a push notification to notify you when it's actually in theaters. Because sometimes you see a trailer a year in advance and you have no idea when it's in a theater. And then obviously it would dynamically change. So if it was in theaters, it's by ticket, and if it's post theaters, it's by merchandise or DVD or stream it. So you're actually streamlining the entire process from start to finish. And I think Steve Jobs did a good job of kind of explaining this transition. But back in the day, they would do a lot of traditional marketing, which is commercials on Thursday night and hoping that people go on Friday and Saturday. And the younger demographic these days is on their tablets, and they're on their mobile phones, and they're on their social platforms, and they're not watching television. So there's been a big leap forward as far as like how people are engaging with the content. Okay, so I traveled, before I even had raised any money, I went down to LA and met with every CEO, CTO, president, CFO, SVP, EVP, VP of the studios, kind of trying to garner as much information as I could about like how they're marketing movies, how we can make it more efficient, because our idea from the beginning was like trying to work alongside the studio. I know from the people that I'd met that they were having such a pain point with how much money they were spending, and they knew that they needed transition into a more technology mindset. And so meeting with the studios was really advantageous for our company, because I got to learn a lot and how we could make some tools for our own company and also for the studio at the same time. This is everyone I met. I pretty much know everybody in every studio at this point. We started this about 2.5 years ago. So I go down at least once a month and reconnect with different people, same people, to manage the relationships. And after I'd done all this research and, we started to hire engineers, we started to look for investors. And so this might pertain to some people who are trying to raise money for their own movie. AngelList and LinkedIn was really my best friend. I think I went to them every day, and I tried to garner a list from like the top 10 VCs or investors that would be interested, to middle VCs, to bottom VCs. And then I always started pitching the bottom VCs to kind of practice as far as like getting the pitch at the right place that it needed to be, which takes a lot of iterations. I created a pitch deck. So here you can see you do the introduction, the team, the problem, advantages. I'm sure you guys have your own kind of pitches, but I think sometimes I wouldn't even use the pitch. You have a coffee with someone, you have a good conversation, you don't need to use it, but sometimes you do. So it's always good to have it on your computer. And I personally had never pitched in my entire life for anything. Like, I'm not a salesperson. I've never asked for money in my entire life from anybody, including my family. So I had a really hard time like figuring out how to pitch. And so I would recommend, if you're like me, practicing in front of a camera or your own phone and videotaping yourself and doing like a 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute pitch. I'm sure you guys know that the attention spans of people in Silicon Valley and in Hollywood are very short, and sometimes you see them wandering off after like 2 minutes. So that's not grabbing their attention. You have to constantly be thinking of new ways to grab their attention so that you stand out in their mind. I also this is just saying I went to a lot of coffees, and you want to try to, when you're ready, I think it took me like 2 months when I felt like I was like totally prepared to get to the top investors I wanted. You want to connect with the people that are in your category. So a lot of times they invest in you because they like you, or they invest in you because they're super passionate about what you're building or what movie you're making or what have you. So this is kind of like our categories for Movie LaLa. And I would have to say, like, it was difficult for me as far as building an entertainment startup in Silicon Valley. I had a lot of questions. Why aren't you in Hollywood? Why aren't you in LA? What are you doing here? Like, I'm confused. You're a girl. Like, I had a lot of uphill battles, I feel. But I think that what really helped was building the relationship and following up and showing progress, because ultimately you're meeting strangers and asking for checks, and so they're not going to give it to you right away. They want to know that you're going to actually do what you said you're going to do, and this is how I was able to succeed, and I think it's pretty common amongst everybody. And I always say, like, surround yourself with the best investors. It was imperative that I really wanted to get people that would encourage me and be positive. I knew that it would be a very hard road, and it's a very long road. It's not like you build a company and sell it in 6 months. So it's important that you try to get people that you connect with that are passionate about what you're building. And I actually found this quote from Reed Hastings of Netflix saying, "Don't tolerate brilliant jerks. The cost of teamwork is too high." Basically, I think there are a lot of people out there that can give you money, but then you just feel like they're going to put a thorn on your side the entire time, and those are people you should not take money from. And luckily, I've had no problems, so I'm just speaking from what I've heard. These are the investors that we've collected for Movie LaLa. Some of them are from Silicon Valley. A majority of them are from Los Angeles, and all of them are pretty high up in ranking as far as where they were in the studio or in the talent agency. So I'm super happy with my investors. I actually raised pre-product. I went around with a pitch deck and a bunch of designs, telling them what I really wanted to build. That's kind of uncommon, but I didn't have a choice. I didn't have savings. I didn't have anything to live off of, so I had to raise money to hire an engineer to help build it, even though my co-founder was also building it. So I always recommend for anyone who's trying to raise money, whether it's for your creative project or for a startup, to start today. I think that the relationships take longer than you think to build, and you have to do at least 3 meetings before you can actually feel comfortable asking that person to invest in you in your startup or your movie. So always start early when it comes to the initial information exchange and getting to know each other. So this is what our platform is and does. We started with a mobile app, and we wanted to make it personalized. So how do you do that? So we had people follow their favorite stars and directors, and then they follow their favorite genre. It's kind of an onboarding process. And then you're kind of delighted when you get to our feed because you see all these upcoming movies that you actually might be interested in and are related to you. And the idea is that we're trying to garner your intent. When we started Movie LaLa, we realized that like content doesn't come to you in email or SMS. We feel like you're constantly seeking it out, like searching where to watch it, what movie's coming. And when you think of eBay and Amazon, they're constantly inundating you with new products you might like, and they're always usually pretty cool because it's all data-driven and analytics-driven. So we wanted to build that for the entertainment industry. These are all the studios that we've worked with. I will talk to you a little bit about, I told you the call to action technology was something that the studios really liked. So when I continued to meet with them, I was starting to show them parts of our product. And they were like, oh, I really want this tool. I really want that tool. And then I was like, okay, like we can do it. So we started working on some of their major films this past summer, building out an overlay on their video so that when people, we realized so many things working with the studio. We realized that the majority of people are in mobile watching these trailers, not that they're, because we worked on their official website. So we just assumed like, oh, they're going to be desktop views, but 70% were actually in mobile. And we gave them data and analytics in real time. We're a very transparent Silicon Valley company where we want to give them tech and get them comfortable with it and used to it. And this is the dashboard. And I was going to show you really quick a live version of it so you can see what it looks like. Yeah, it's working. So you can kind of see in real time how people are engaging with the trailer. So you can see if they're watching 25, 50, 75% of the trailer or 100% of the trailer. And we learned a lot of things. You know, one of the main things we learned is the majority of people aren't watching the full minute and a half. So actually the pause roll call to action was more powerful than the end roll call to action, which most people assume, you know, you wait till the trailer ends and you share it, but people have such short attention spans. It's like within 10 to 20 seconds, they're pausing it and sharing it. And today, a lot of the video players don't have anything in the pause roll. I think we're like one of the first to build some sort of engagement. So it was interesting to see. And I think even the studio was surprised to know that the majority of people were international and mobile. And so this is when I try to describe where we sit between Silicon Valley and LA. We have the relationships with the studios and starting to build the tools with them on their official websites and social platforms. And that's the video engage that you see there. And then we have all of our apps. We have a family of apps right now. So we have 2 in the iOS store, 1 in the Android store, and 2 in Apple TV. For the Apple TV one, we have like the trailer-like experience of being in the theater. So you can like see all the upcoming trailers and then you can skip them or go back. So it's kind of cool just because it's a beautiful platform to watch trailers on. And basically we're trying to build more mobile distribution around the content and make it a beautiful experience for consumers to discover new movies and create meetup groups and meet new people through movies. Okay. And studios do want these tools. Like I've said, we've had a lot of success in Hollywood. It was definitely difficult in the beginning to build the relationships, but as soon as we started working with them, they saw, you know, like 10% more engagement, a lot of shares, a lot of virality. Like we're actually making an impact on their major films. And ultimately, they do want measurement. They do want to know more about their consumer. They do want to, you know, directly target users who are interested in their films and not do the continual like spray and pray that they've been doing for a while. But the big thing is they do want butts and seats. So I think that I'm not saying Movie LaLa is like the only solution, but it's definitely a better solution for targeting users who are actually interested in that film. So we have our family of apps on the bottom left, I think it is, and then on the, you know, we have the data and analytics and the call to action tools that we've built for their video, and we also built a gift maker app. We realized that a lot of the teenagers, you know, beyond emojis and stickers, they're creating all these GIFs everywhere. If you ever go to Tumblr, it's loaded with celebrity GIFs and trailer GIFs, and so we realized how difficult it is to make a GIF. So we built a tool that allows anyone who's not even technical like myself to make GIFs, and you can add filters, you can make 2-second GIFs, 15-second GIFs, and it's a pretty cool feature or tool that we built, and that just released actually recently. I think that something that makes our company unique against other companies is that we're always on the cutting edge. I feel like having 2 apps in the Apple TV store, which just launched recently, is pretty good. And it kind of separates us from some of the digital agencies that the studios are using today. And we're always like first to market and scrappy and iterating. I think the iterative process is super important when it comes to success, especially moving forward with technology really being infused in everything that we do. You can't just stick to one thing forever. It doesn't work like that. This is some of our success. We've been featured in the Apple Store over 100 times. This is kind of like how we've been able to get distribution. We've also built partnerships with chat apps. Chat apps have millions, if not billions of users like WeChat, Kik, Tango, Line. And movies obviously are a global product, so they actually do really well in these chat apps where users are, in China or Asia and Philippines, and they're dying to get access to Hollywood. People love movies, so we're starting to actually build movie channels on chat apps to bring even broader distribution for the studio and mobile. And the other cool thing is because we have such tight relationships with the studios, we're able to bring exclusive content to the chat platforms that probably these people will not have access to seeing before. So this is one of the examples that we did for Mission Impossible. This is my final slide. I think it can be really difficult, and you have your really bad days, you don't want to get out of bed. I think we've all been there. Or you have just a bad interaction with someone that you had a coffee meeting with that you really wanted their money, or you really wanted their excitement around what you're building, and it's just not there. But I think, everything has a time and place, and if you just keep at it, eventually, something will give and there'll be light at the tunnel. And I think that between us doing a startup and doing a film is actually the same thing. Everything takes a lot of time. It takes money, it takes people, it takes talent, it takes perseverance. So I'm actually kind of excited to be here and pitching you guys about a startup and how it relates to the things that you guys are actually doing, which I know is very difficult. This is like a picture of my team, and we have an engineer house, so I just put the pool in there so you can see it. But everyone lives and sleeps there. I'm pretty much doing the HBO show right now. We'll see what happens when I can get an office space and they have to commute, but everyone is very happy, building our company and living and working together. That's it. Yeah.